Welcome everybody to my regionals interview with Michael Pramawat. Did I say that right?
You did.
All
That's
right.
a lot of people get that wrong the first time. So
I'm not very
congratulations.
good at pronouncing names, but I got it right. I did it right. We got it. All right. Well, you got a pretty interesting story, man. You're one of the great names in Pokemon. I don't know if you see yourself that way, but with five regionals and a nationals this year, you tied Sosa. You're up there with some of the great names. You've won regionals in many different states. You're able to travel around the country and just do your thing and play Pokemon. I mean, that's the dream of many of us to be able to travel around from state to state, win championships, win money doing it. I mean, we're all doing it for the championship and the recognition there, but to win that money is just a little something extra on top because travels all the expenses, covers all the travel and the expenses and whatnot.
Yeah, for sure.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been playing Pokemon? What got you into Pokemon?
I've been playing Pokemon for a long time. I think over 15 years now. I started when I was really young and kind of stuck with it. And then I took some seasons. I take some like time off in between that. Like I didn't play like 16 full years straight, but yeah, I've been playing since like 16 years ago.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, I've started off just kind of like everyone else. You know, we were all bad at the time, and I've been getting better. They say it takes like 10,000 hours to master a craft. I think I probably have that.
Yeah, 10,000 hours. I probably got about 10 hours. No, I've got a few hours under my belt, but 10 years, or 15 years, I can only hope to be playing Pokemon for that long. I started as an adult, so what drew me into it, I don't know if it may have been the same thing that drew you into it. But I mean, it's a pretty fun game. I'm loving the community, and it's really fun to be a part of. A lot of people think that Pokemon is, not as competitive as some of these other games out there because there's no interacting with your opponent. But I actually like it. I kind of compare it to like playing poker, as to where you have to be able to read your opponent a little bit, and kind of be able to counter what they do, not necessarily, immediately counter it.
Right. You don't have a lot of hard answers like you would in other games. Like other games, you can interact with your opponent during their turn and really shut them down pretty hard. This game is more about predicting what your opponent's going to do and then trying to maneuver around them. So it's a lot of positioning and maneuvering around.
All right, well, let's get right into regionals. Did you play in Seattle last week?
No, I did not. The last regionals I went to was Toronto, which was expanded, and it did not have Guardians Rising. So I was in the audience for Seattle.
And did you just opt out just to see what happened, or you just couldn't make it down there?
I just couldn't make it, and it was. I was going to play Garbodor if I did go,
Yeah.
so I would have been part of the crew, part of the 24 maybe. But I was surprised on how many Garbodor made it because I don't think anyone expected 24 people to make it into top 32. But I was expecting maybe like 18, something like that.
Yeah, I was surprised too that the whole field was pretty much Garbodor. I myself would have played Garbodor. I probably would not have made day two, but I definitely would have played Garbodor. I tried to convince a teammate of mine to play Garbodor, and he took like four different decks with him. Lycanroc, Metagross, and he ended up playing Decidueye Ninetales because he absolutely loves Decidueye.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what was your reasoning for choosing Vespiquen going into Madison?
Um, a lot of it was its success in Seattle. It wasn't on my radar going into Seattle, so I wouldn't have played it. But when I saw Jeffrey Chang play it and how well he was doing, and I think if the cards were a little different, he would have won versus Sam Chen. I just knew the deck was super strong versus Garbodor, and going into Madison, I think everyone's game plan was I'm going to play a deck that beats Garbodor, and then we're just going to see where everything else falls. So I figured Vespiquen was in really strong position for that because it's just such an aggressive deck.
Yeah. Well, you said Sam did play Vespa Queen, but your guys' lists are pretty different. I mean, you're playing two Tapa Leles, and you're playing two Shamans. I think he played two Shamans, and he played a Phoebos and a melodic line. I think he played three Klefkis. So there's quite a difference in your list, and he didn't play the EV typing. So
Yeah.
what went into your decision? Why did you decide to play the EV typing?
Well, the EVs, I knew Tapu Bulu and Lurantis was getting a lot of hype. So I wanted the Flareon for that matchup specifically, because trying to hit 210 with Vespa Queen naturally is a little bit of a struggle. Um, However, with Flareon, it becomes much easier. All you have to do is get 9 Pokemon in the discard or 6 with a Choice Band. However, it also doubled over for me in the finals against Metagross, so that was a pretty nice coincidence. And it also let you, and I also knew Volcanion was going to be big. For I don't know how big among the masses, but I knew it was going to be big among top players. So I wanted to also run Vaporeon for that same reason. And so I cut the melodic line, and a Klefki and something else. I don't know. I don't remember the exact differences, but yeah.
You
So I
didn't
edited
play a
that.
parallel. He played one parallel.
Yeah,
So
I didn't play parallel. That's probably what it was. And I cut the Absol. He ran an Absol.
yeah, he
I
ran
cut
an
it for
Absol.
a choice band because the 30 damage is still 30 damage, but you can do more maneuvers with choice band than you can with Absol.
Yeah, I think that two choice man is very very good in that matchup. You played two Floatstone as well, or just the one?
Yeah, I played two. I
Yeah.
ran one less Klefki, and I ran one less. And I think he played two. I opted for the second Tapu Lele because I wanted to be more aggressive with the deck. So the Lele lets me get Sycamore faster. Then I'd rather play. Most times I'd rather play Sycamore than N. And then if I want to discard it, I'd rather discard a Tapu Lele than I would an N.
Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. So did you have an MVP? I mean, through the entire day one and day two, was it the same Pokemon? Did you put in, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're saying. So I had different MVPs for different parts of the tournament. Day one, the MVP was definitely a Rangaroo. Uh, he let me be super aggressive. I could go up like 5 and then like just be fine if I get end to 1 because I could just draw my entire deck with a Rangaroo. Uh, and if they like hex me, then I just have the win anyways in my hand, so they have to end, and then a Rangaroo solves that issue. So it's a really nice card to get through Swiss. My second day, I actually didn't play much during the Swiss in the second day because I had my one game on stream, which I ended up in a draw, and then I played a mirror match, which is just kind of a coin flip matchup. It's just whoever gets the first attack off. So fortunately for me, that was me. And then I was able to draw my next 3 rounds. So the MVP of my top 8 matches, my top cut matches, was definitely the evolution line. My top 8 in finals matchup.
Yeah, it definitely put a lot of work in, and just, I mean, I know it was getting knocked out, and you were putting it back, and I think you even discarded it game one, and then found a way to get it back on, and he was targeting your EVs, and I mean, he knew that he had to get rid of those Flareons for him to have a chance.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so game one, you lost. It was a pretty close game. He chose to go with In instead of Karen late in the game. I don't know if you were aware of that. Were you aware that he
Yes.
was playing Karen before?
Yeah. I think at that point, most of everyone knew what everyone else was playing for the most part, except for maybe a few cards. But Karen was pretty public about what he was playing. So I knew he was going for Karen. Always tried to put myself in a situation where, like, if he Karened, then that's his supporter for the turn. So I could always come back with more Pokemon. Like I tried to hold Ultra Balls, I tried to hold Acrobikes, and always had a maybe like sometimes I would like think about going if he Karened me, I can Ultra Ball for a Shaman, and then draw like 5 or 6 Pokemon, and then Sycamore them away. So I still had options if he Karened, but if he ends, I needed the Oranguru, and I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, you didn't get that Oranguru out.
Yeah, which was the MVP of day one for that reason.
I think it ended up being pretty close to the bottom of your deck there.
Yeah, I think it was the last card. Yeah.
So that game didn't go quite so well, and he won that with Lysander, correct?
Yeah, I won game 2 with Lysander. I actually made a sequencing error at the end. I should have realized my one out was Lysander, so I should have just Lysandered before I instructed, so I can draw an extra card. But ended up working okay, anyways.
Sometimes you get caught up in the moment, and you know the sequencing just gets out of whack.
It's a very technical deck, so fortunately for me, it worked out.
Sometimes I find myself, as a new player, playing a little bit faster than I should be, and then making a sequencing error. But it's not as easy for me to recover. You were still able to recover and pull that off pretty good, and then that got you the game. You were tied up, and how did you feel at that point, tied up, going into game 3?
Felt pretty good. With 75 minutes, I don't even consider time. So like, I didn't even consider it had been a long game 1 and a long game 2. I just was like, okay, we got one on the board. Flareon did what it's supposed to do. As long as I can do something similar in game 3, I think I can win. And then I drew two special charges in my second one hand. And I was like, this is bad.
Yeah, what was that like? That was like in the first 3 turns, right? Right up there.
Yeah, I think it was my first turn.
Was it turn 1?
My hand wasn't that great, so I wanted to Shaman to maybe draw something I could, use. And then I drew 2 special charges. And I also had the Flareon in my hand with an Eevee on the bench. So I didn't even want to, because I didn't want to Sycamore the Flareon away. So I wanted to play a supporter. So I was like, maybe I can Shaman for 2 cards, get an Ultra Ball maybe get a Tapu Lele, maybe even just raw draw the end. And I drew 2 special charges, and that was painful.
In hindsight, maybe it would have played out a little differently, but it still worked out for you. I mean, when I saw you draw or Sycamore those 2 special charges away, I was scared for you. I was feeling it because those are some pretty important cards to have in your deck, and you definitely want those, mid and late game to be able to not have to worry so much about, using energy to retreat your Mangaroo or putting an energy on Vesiclean or Zoroark and getting knocked out and knowing you can, pile it right back in. Because with that deck, you're cycling through so fast, and you have the option to pretty much go through your deck in a few turns if you want to.
Yeah. Well, with the deck, you definitely need to. You need a certain amount of DCEs for prizes. So you're okay if DCE hits the discard as long as it's taking a prize. However, if I have to discard 2 right away, and that means I have 4 DCEs to take 6 prizes, which cuts down the efficiency, because like I can get away with 5 because eventually one will take an EX or a GX Pokemon, but with 4 you have to be much more careful because they can go down pretty quickly.
So go ahead and, if you don't mind, walk us through that game 3, that championship game to get you your 5th win, and seal the deal for Vespa Queen. Sure. I think that was Vespa Queen's first win at the regionals, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. I don't know if it's the first ever. I haven't been paying too much attention to it, but it's definitely the first in recent memory.
I think it's the only Vespa Queen.
It won U.S. Nationals, but that wasn't really fair because it's not really a Vespa Queen deck. It was more of a Night March deck that had Vespa Queen in it.
Yeah, this is a true Vespa Queen deck.
Yeah, this is a pure Vespa Queen deck for the most part.
So, it's pretty cool. This is like an XY deck pretty much. You've got Tapu Lele in it. I mean, everything else is pretty, in Shaman. Everything else, you're going up, you're taking this deck up, and you're battling Sun and Moon era GXs, 250 hit points, and you're just running through them. I mean, so, yeah, walk us through that, and walk us through your mind state and what was going on while you're taking this huge Metagross battle.
Okay, so I got the Flareon down, and then he discards a supporter, doesn't play one, and then beacons. So he knows my hand is not good. So I know I'm forced to play Sycamore on this turn. So I have to get rid of 2 special charges. At this point, I know I have 4 DCE to work with, which is enough to win the game, but I have to be super careful with it. So I try to use Shaman to put 30 onto the Vulpix so I can take a prize, and then later on in the game, Lysander or Beldum or a Metang to go to even prizes. But he also realizes this and then max potions the Vulpix, the 30 damage on Vulpix, so I can't just take a cheeky prize with Sky Returns. So eventually it comes down to I ended up getting a choice band on Zoroark with Flareon, and I one-shot a Metagross EX, or GX. And he comes in with the counter knockout, and then eventually we're tied on 4-4. And I send up a Sky Return to get the Shaman off the board, because I don't want him to just Lysander knock it out. And I send up Oranguru, because I have my board is at this point is a Eevee because he had knocked out the Flareon with the Lysander, a Vespiquen, two Vespiquens, and I need those to attack, right? And a Zoroark, yeah. So I need those to attack. So I sent up the Oranguru, and then he just beaconed, or he algorithmed, I think. That's it. So I remember thinking he probably got a max potion in his hand, but he was running pretty low on energies, so I was going to come up with Zoroark. He can either super conductivity, keep the 70 damage on him, and then knock out my Zoroark, in which case I can, even without Flareon, I can naturally come to a knockout, because I only have to do 180, which is a much more reasonable number than 250. Mm-hmm. So he ends up deciding, he starts counting my deck and his deck, and at this point I know that his win condition is deck out. That's what he's going for. So he sends up a Vulpix and just beacons against my Oranguru. And my hand is like a VS Seeker and a bunch of Pokemon. Because Karen, a little after that, Karen had come through and put all of our Pokemon back into the deck.
Yeah, let me just say, man, you were able to recover from that Karen pretty good. I feel like it hurt him more than it hurt you.
It definitely hurts him a little. I mean, it hurts me more, but it definitely hurts him a little bit. I can recover from it because of things like Klefki and Unknown. They just immediately hit the discard for the most part. Not so much on the Klefki, but the Unknown, and the Unknown lets me cycle through the deck. Mm-hmm. So, like, as I'm playing Unknowns, I'm drawing more Pokemon, and if I have a Sycamore in my hand, all these Pokemon that I've accumulated in my hand can now hit the discard.
Okay.
So I can, because your hand ends up being like a lot of Pokemon. But if we're in this draw pass scenario, then I can just accumulate a ton of Pokemon in my hand, and there's nothing he'll want to do about it. So I was just basically at this point waiting to draw Flareon, because the sequencing was going to be such that I knew he was out of VS Seekers at this point. I saw 4 VS Seeker in the discard, so I knew he had 1 Lysander left. So that was pretty much his only supporters. He wasn't going to go VS Seeker for N, so I was pretty comfortable. He wasn't going to use Karen again, so any Pokemon in the discard was safe from a Karen at this point. And if I can draw the Flareon, I can knock out Metagross, and then he has to commit a bunch of cards and he needs to have a Lysander on Flareon to commit a knockout, at which point I can do some 2-shots. I can it would come down to where I would have 2 Vespiquens fully powered, and I would just try the 2-shot him. And he would be out of Lysanders at that point, so my Vespiquens would go unmoved. And it would just come down to that. Also, he had a Tapu Lele on the bench at this point, so I had another Lysander. I think I had another VS Seeker for Lysander, so I could, if I can get the 180 or 170 damage, then I can just knock out the Tapu Lele.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it got to a point in your deck where you hit that DCE, you retreated a Oranguru.
Mm-hmm. I actually had the DCE in my hand for a while from the Sky Return, so I actually had all my DCEs.
Okay.
What I was waiting on was the Flareon, because the Flareon I shoveled back in with Pokemon Rescue or Rescue Stretcher. That's what it was, Rescue Stretcher. and then Karen hit. So I was waiting on Flareon because I couldn't do 250 damage naturally.
Yeah.
So I needed Flareon to get that. And as soon as I drew Flareon, I attached DC to Oranguru, retreated, and then knocked out the Metagross.
Yeah, well, I think you had 10 Pokemon in the discard right there, and you just started digging, and somehow you got it done. You got a couple more Pokemon in the discard. You got Flareon out, and I mean that pretty much sealed up the deal. And um, were you aware that it was like so close to time? I think you had like a minute and a half left.
No, I was not. When it's 75 minutes, I generally just don't even try to keep track of time. I just assume we have like enough time to play 3 full games. But when time was called, I was like, really long game 1, really long game 2. We're in a deck out scenario, game 3. Of course it hits time. Why wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And then, so I was kind of fortunate. I was pretty fortunate to draw Flareon when I did, but I was waiting on it for quite a while.
And so then I think he just, you knock out a couple Pokemon, he shakes your hand. So he didn't put his Pokemon up in time, and then that allowed, after you knocked his Pokemon out, it allowed for one less extra turn after time ended.
So yeah, he also was not aware of time, clearly, or else he would have promoted much quicker.
Yeah.
But, or maybe he was, I don't know. No, there's no way he was aware of time. Because of the way we were playing. And he was just fully focused on the deck out. Had we fully played out deck out mode, he probably would have won because I did not draw the VS Seeker or the Floatstone off the prizes. I just drew like the 2 blank, like basically 2 blank cards. So he would have won in that scenario, but given that we have 75 minutes, and 75 minutes is plenty of time to complete a series of 3, it is what it is. So I ended up winning 5 times.
Yeah, so, I mean, to be playing 45-minute games for 2 days and then get into the 75-minute game, I'm sure you're a little, kind of not really aware of how much time is left. It's an extra half hour, so you're like, it's like almost an extra full game,
Mm-hmm.
So,
plus, we're playing more carefully because it's such an important match that we're also just probably naturally playing slightly slower than we normally do. In addition, we were trying to always keep track of Vespiquen math with the dice, which also eats up time throughout the turns. So over one turn it might be 5 seconds, right? But over 30, 40 turns, that's 3 minutes of just moving dice around with Vespiquen. So it eats up.
All right, well, yeah, and that's how you won it. So it was pretty fun to watch, and I definitely enjoyed it. I had to play in a League Cup yesterday, and I literally was gonna play almost the same list, a little different though. I was choosing between Vespiquen or Vikavolt Bulu, and I knew a couple people had Oricorio and Karen in their deck, and I'm just not as a skilled player as others, so I chose to play the Vikavolt deck, and I ended up having I had to play 3 Zoroark Drampa matches, a Zoroark, 2 Drampas, and then the Zoroark Umbreon match. So I had a lot of draws and a lot of long games. It didn't work out for me. But I definitely, in hindsight, I wish I would have played Vespiquen just because it's so much fun. I wish I just wouldn't have worried about the Oricorios and the Karens and just had it. And I have so much fun playing that deck because you're always thinking, you're always doing something, and you know that your Vespiquen's going to get knocked out, but you're hopefully set up so that you just knock something out bigger the next turn.
Yeah, Oricorio isn't a big deal until you hit around 15 to 18 Pokemon in your discard. Otherwise, it's it just takes 1 prize, or if it takes 2 prizes over 2 turns. If it's only a big deal if they strand something, if you have something active that's stranded in the active spot.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can play around it by just doing the minimum amount of damage that you need to do. However, I do think because of the nature of Metagross, if that had been an Oricorio rather than a Karen, I would have lost 2-0.
So if there's regionals next Friday. Say there's one. What are you playing?
Well, there actually is. It's in Mexico City.
Okay. I thought that was maybe expanded. It's not standard?
No, it's standard.
Oh, okay.
The last expanded tournament of the year was in Toronto.
Okay.
So everything from then on is in standard. So.
Well, are you going to Mexico City then?
I am. I'm leaving on Thursday.
Well, you don't have to spill the beans if you don't want to, but.
I mean,
you could tell us what you think some good plays
I'm not
are.
going to be playing Vespa Queen.
Okay.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Because I think everyone should be playing Oricorio at this point. otherwise, Vespa Queen players can just get another free win.
Yeah.
So I think everyone should just be. I think if it was me, I would be running Oricorio and I would just destroy Vespa Queen. Because especially if you're like Vespa Queen, if you have an Oricorio and Metagross. What you do is they just have 10 Pokemon in their discard, and then you just Oricorio down Flareon. And what do?
Yeah.
They just can't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds about right. Well, let me ask a different question then, because we don't want you to give your super spicy secrets away. What did you think about the meta going into day 2? Top 32 had so many different options compared to just a week before that was full of Garbodrampa. I mean, I as a Pokemon player, I think it was just so cool to see all these different decks in the top cut just a week before. Everyone was like, oh, Garbodrampa, it's taking over the format. You can't beat it. Well, no. A week later, we have, over 20 different decks in the top cut.
Mm-hmm. And Garbodrampa did not even make top 8. The Garbodor deck that did make top 8 is Garbodor Espeon, which I believe is in better position for the metagame than Garbodrampa.
Yeah.
So, you still have to respect Garbodor, so you can't just go crazy with your deck and play like Trainer's Mail. Otherwise, you will lose the Garbodor no matter what deck you're playing. But I think the format hit a really good spot. Because before this, you saw everyone was just playing Trainer's Mails and giant basic Pokemon, and then Garbodor was like, you can't do that anymore. So that's what you saw. You saw people not adjusting properly in Seattle, and they had a week to digest how to play against Garbodor. I'm sure everyone was testing versus that deck, especially because I don't think anyone knew how to build the deck properly. And then when Sam Chen's list came out, Brad Crucio's, when those Garbodor decks became public, everyone just copied them, and now they could properly playtest against a Garbodor deck that's been properly built. So everyone knew what they were doing against it now, and this is what you see. The result is you see a lot of really cool decks. I'm really happy that Stage 2 decks won. If I was not playing the Vespa Queen deck, I would have been rooting for the Metagross deck to win.
Yeah, Rare Candy's a thing again. So
yeah, I'm super excited about playing Rare Candy.
It was pretty cool to see.
I didn't know about the Metagross deck, but I might have played it if I did.
No, yeah, I was one of those people that was like, oh, Metagross, this is Metagross. And then we actually started playtesting it, and it was actually pretty good. Obviously, our list wasn't that good. We weren't playing Alolan Bullet and, we had a few other things in there, but we were like, this deck is really good. It's just we're not building it quite right. And then here we are a few weeks later, and this is definitely the proper build. It's just pure Metagross,
Yeah, I think right now the Stage 2 decks are probably running at like 90% optimized. So I think there's a lot of, because, not everyone's used to playing Stage 2 decks again. So everyone has to get used to that. Everyone has to properly build the Stage 2 deck. I think the Metagross deck can be a little better. I think the Vigavolt deck can get a lot better. That's actually my favorite Stage 2 line is the Vigavolt, but I think it needs a lot of work. And as time goes on, maybe by the time Internationals rolls around, I think Vigavolt will be very strong. Yeah,
Vigavolt's pretty fun to play. I don't know how you feel, but Vikavolt Bulu is a pretty good partnership.
Yeah, I like it.
It's pretty strong. It's pretty strong to be able to just search your deck for that energy you need, and then if you have to hit something for 180 and discard it, as long as you got a couple of Vikavolt in play, it doesn't really matter. You can just boom, attach, and good to go.
It's real good. I like it a lot. I like it. I like the toolbox version where it's like, maybe one or two Bulu and then like one of other Pokemon and then but I still think people should run Vikavolt GX because sometimes you just need to use its GX attack to hit everything for 60.
Yeah, it's pretty strong. Maybe I'll try to work that into my list because I'm not playing that. But
yeah, because you can even run lines like 3-1, 2-1, or even like 2-1-2, and then one Vikavolt GX, and like maybe I'll get it out, maybe I won't. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty good. I'll have to play with it. It's definitely a fun deck.
Oh, for sure.
So let me ask you this: if you could make, knowing what you know now, do you think your list was perfect, or would you have changed to one card or two cards, or?
Yeah, I would have ran a third choice ban. That card is too good. Like most of the games, it was just came down to me like, did I draw choice ban? Did I draw choice ban? Did I draw choice ban? And then like in terms of the early game, in the later games, later stage of the game, it doesn't matter as much. But I would have played a third choice ban. As for what I would cut, I'm not exactly sure. Everything is so tight at this point.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Like, what would you cut?
Yeah, hard to know. I really liked the rest of the deck, though.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. I don't think you can cut any more Klefki.
Yeah.
You're not cutting a Mangaroo.
I actually played against Mega Rayquaza, and they won a Swiss, and the Klefki I was like, oh man, I get the Wonder Lock onto a Vespiquen that's just one-shotting. Oh.
That was a pretty good feeling, I bet, right?
Yeah, I'd be like, I was like, Lysander, that Tapu Lele, Wonder Lock onto the Vespiquen 170 knockout, and it was just like...
You're like, finally, Klefki is doing something more than just going to the discard.
Yeah, the best part is it protects the double colorless energy.
Yeah, those are pretty scarce. So, I mean, you're not getting knocked out, and it protects that energy so you can do your damage the next turn and really get into it. Yeah. So, and you feel the Zoroark is just too good in this deck. You run 2/2 that.
Yeah, because you can't just solely attack with Vespiquen. I mean, you can kind of, but you'll eventually just run out of attackers. So you need to somehow get some poke damage in.
Yeah.
With either Shaman, Lele, or Zoroark. I only attacked with Oranguru once, but that's because I was forced to.
I think he kind of forced you. You had a couple energies on there, and he just kind of forced you to play that and not knock it out. Is that correct?
It was like I started with Oranguru, and I was about to discard a double colorless, and I went first. So I was like, just attach this double colorless to the active. Maybe I'll use it to retreat eventually. But then I drew another double colorless, and I was like, I guess we're just gonna Lysander the Zora for a knockout. So that's how I ended up attacking. Yeah.
And so, what about the Forest? Because I know Forest is a new card in here. You chose not to play a Parallel City, which when I play, I find the Parallel City so good to just help you get those extra Pokemon in the discard pile. But you didn't seem to need it. And is that the right stadium count, you think? 2 Forest, no Parallel?
I think that's correct.
Yeah.
As soon as you just have to be super careful. So I think I take a little longer to play than most players, just because I get super paranoid about some like my counting. So you'll see me like count like Vespiquen map like twice, just to make sure I have I am doing the correct amount of damage. But if you play the deck very carefully, you do not need Parallel, because you can always get rid of the bench spot with Sky Return. The only Pokemon you would Parallel City away is Tapu Lele. An argument can be made for Parallel if you run Tauros, but that card is specifically good in Mirror and no other matchup. So, if you're worried about Mirror, you can play Tauros.
Well, I'm sure at my League Cup next week there'll be a lot of Vespiquen decks popping up because that's what we like to do. As Pokemon players, we like to just, copy the proven list, the most current thing, and roll with it and have fun. I got a little spicy deck I'll be playing at the League Cup next week. We're still working out its consistency there, but no secrets, no intel. So I'm hoping to do good with that. But much as I wanted to play Vespiquen, I just don't think it's going to be the play.
Yeah, I also don't think it's going to be the play. I was kind of joking around that this is the last tournament anyone can play Vespiquen at.
Well, who knows? Who knows what the meta brings? But I'm just happy to see so many good and creative decks being played and viable. And just to know that the meta is not going to be ran by a certain Pokemon named
Yeah,
Garbodor, and
it's
it's
very
not just
diverse.
Garbodor; it's Garbodor Jumpa. They're just a really hard combo. You can play around one. It's really hard to play around both of them.
Yeah, I think that's why everyone was like, we're just gonna not play items down and have to figure out ways to deal with Drampa. So like, Drampa can't do 250, so so Metagross gets in there. Drampa can knock out a Vespiquen, but that just adds 20 more damage, and then they just take two prizes. So Vespiquen also just you don't care about Garbodor. You're just like, I'm gonna play my game. I'm gonna use all the items I want to play, and then I'm just gonna go super fast. And Garbodor just can't keep up.
Yeah, I think Garbodor is relying on doing that 1-for-2 prize trade. So when you put him in a game where he has to go 1-for-1, it's just kind of like takes him out of the zone of what he's trying to do.
Yeah, you're trying to go for, you put them out of their comfort zone, so they are trying to go for the 2-for-1s with Garbodor, and you put them in 1-for-1 situations. Plus, your deck is much faster and more consistent, so you can keep streamlining these 1-for-1s, and they cannot. They have to get extremely lucky to even just keep up with you.
All right, man. Well, anything else you want to add?
Let's see. Coming for that 6 regional win, trying to one up Israel Sosa.
Yeah, competition's good. Competition's
Yeah.
good.
It's a friendly competition. We're not like at each other's throats, but yeah, I'm gonna try and get there. If you want to follow me on like tournament updates, like when I go to tournaments, I try to update my Twitter. This time I didn't do it because my phone was like dead at like past like a couple of rounds, but yeah, I generally try to update my Twitter. I definitely update post tournament. So if you want to like see what I played, see how I did, you can follow me on Twitter. It's just at Michael Pramawat.
All right, and we'll put that down in the description so you guys can follow Michael on Twitter. And I mean, keep in tune with one of the great minds in Pokemon that we have playing right now. Very humble, nice guy. It's a great deck choice for the event. I can't wait to see what you decide to play in Mexico City. And good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing this with me, and appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.